great to have you all here this evening. As I said before, this is a really fantastic opportunity for you to find out more about Teach First. And we've got a fantastic panel lined up tonight for you really to learn more about Teach First as an organisation, who we are and why we do what we do, and to hear from people who have actually trained with us and people who support our trainees whilst they're training as well, to really get like such a broad perspective from lots of different people about what it's like to be part of Teach First. So I hope that all the things that you are coming for this evening, you're going to get from tonight's event. My name's Laura Wilkinson. I'm an experienced hire recruiter for Teach First, and my role really is about providing more information and advice about our training programme so that you can decide whether it might be the right next step for you. I'm going to be hosting this evening's webinar alongside my colleague Steph Miranda. Steph works in our underrepresented talent team, and she's also going to be hosting our Q&A session a little bit later on this evening. So we're going to kick off tonight with from our CEO, our Chief Executive Officer, Russell Hobby. Russell's going to tell you a little bit more about Teach First, who we are as an organisation, why we exist and what we're trying to achieve. I'm then going to talk through our training programme, the benefits of it, the structure, the opportunities that we offer, and also like who we recruit to our training programme as well. As I say, I'll then hand over to Steph, who can tell you a little bit more about her role and her team's work. And she'll also host the main part of the evening, which is that Q&A session with our former trainees and also a member of our trainee support team as well, one of our development leads. And hopefully at the end of that, you'll be really excited and looking forward to finding out what is the actual next step for you. And I'll talk through that very briefly before we end the evening. I know lots of you probably have come with some quite individual questions, like, what am I eligible to teach? Which schools do you work with? Where could I end up locally? Those aren't really things that we're able to cover in a national webinar such as this, but you will, I can assure you, get a contact from a recruiter within 48 hours of this webinar. We have regional recruiters who are specific to every part of the country who can give you individual personal advice on what you're eligible for and the schools that we work with locally, so that you've got all the kind of more minute details that will help you in finding out, those details are important for you personally. Hopefully the Q&A session, as I say, will really support you in understanding what it is that we offer as an organisation, what is it like to work in our schools and so on. So yeah, looking forward to getting started, and without much further ado, I'm just going to hand over to Russell to tell you a little bit more about why Teach First exists.
Thank you, Laura. Good evening, everybody. I'm delighted to welcome you to this call. I'm equally delighted that you are interested in the potential for training as a teacher and developing as a leader with Teach First as well. I suspect you're all at quite a range of phases of thinking about that, from those who are totally committed to doing this to those who are just exploring in the very early stages of that. And that's great that we've got that full range, and I hope we've got something for everybody in that regard. But I hope we nudge a few of you along to being totally committed to what we're trying to do as well. And I look forward to being part of the chat afterwards. My role here, and I'm only going to speak for a short space of time, because you've got the potential to get access to people who've been through the programme and those who work most closely with them, so they can talk in great depth. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about Teach First itself and how the work that we do in terms of training teachers connects to our mission as a charity. And Teach First's mission in life is to build a fair education system. And of all of the things that we could focus our energy on, we've chosen this because it has such ramifications, I think, for the state of our country as a whole. And the fact is, at the moment, that outcomes in education depend far too much, far too often on the wealth, the class, the race, the background of the family that you come from, not the raw potential, talent, ambition, and just basic rights of the young people going through our system as well. And we can see this stack up at every age group. And it has got worse since the COVID pandemic and since the disruption of lockdown. And these days, according to research from the Education Endowment Foundation, we can see that young people in year one, so 5, 6 years old as well, if you come from a family eligible for free school meals, you will be 6 months behind your more affluent peers by the end of that year. In year 2, you're 9 months behind your more affluent peers. And at the moment at GCSE level, those that come from low-income families on average are 18 months behind their more affluent peers when it comes to their educational outcomes as well. And the effects of that ripple onwards. This is not just about outcomes within the education system, but your ability to then get access to university or high quality apprenticeships, great training programs with the best employers in the country, your ability to get access to the professions that make so many of the decisions that affect our country, from health to law to media and beyond, your ability to get the high earning jobs, the ability to do what you want to do with your life as well, is all gets its start, you get a head start, or you get held behind, depending on what we can do for you within our education system as well. And you can look beyond education and you can see the connection into health outcomes, as well as broader, more educational concerns. In fact, I was talking to a head teacher who was about to take over a struggling school in the neighborhood, and he was able to point to that for each bus stop that you move away from that school's catchment area, the average life expectancy goes up by about a year each time you step up. And there are many factors affecting that, but we know that education, health, prosperity, and so on are tightly connected to each other as well. So if we want to build a fair country, we need to start with a fair education system as well. And we just do not have that at this point in time. And there are 3 things that motivate me in regard to that. The first one is just basic justice, that everybody deserves a chance in life to fulfill their potential and to make the choices that they want to make in their life as well. And that's just a basic human right, I think. I also think it connects to our shared prosperity as a country. We've heard a great deal, I think, in recent months about economic growth and stagnation as a country as well. We've heard sort of solutions in terms of tax cuts and all of those sorts of things. To me, the deep underlying solution to economic growth and a prosperous country is to get the education system right as well, and that will benefit every single one of us. I also think it's important to our sense of community and our unity as a country as well, that if we want everybody to be part of what we're trying to build, we have to give a stake to every single person in our country as well. And that's one of the things that education does for us too. So just the stakes could not be higher in terms of getting this right. And although I've said like we're not getting it right at the moment as a country, I find I can see teachers getting it right in their classrooms. I can see schools getting it right. I can see communities getting it right. And where this is happening, young people, whatever their start in life, are able to go on and achieve the most wonderful outcomes as well. So this is not destiny. This is a choice, and this is within our control as well. And I think it does fundamentally come back to schools. At Teach First, we talk about the school as the agent of change. And as I said, there are many forces going on in a young people's life, but the school is an institution that is trusted, that is rooted in every community in the country, and which can do something about this as well. And to me, schools are built out of teachers and leaders. We can talk about the buildings, we can talk about the tech, we can talk about everything else going on. It's the people inside the school that make the difference. And our aim as a charity to fulfill our mission of building a fair country through a fair education system is to bring together a community of teachers and leaders who serve in the schools, serving the most disadvantaged communities in this country, and are equipped to do what it takes to provide the education that those young people need, working in partnership and alongside teachers and leaders from many other routes into teaching. We don't have all of the answers in Teach First. We rely on that wider community as well. We just want to be part of the people who are doing that work. And I think that's where you come in to this as well. Step one is to learn how to be the best teacher you can possibly be. And that in itself is almost a lifetime's journey. There's so much to learn in there, but we give you an enormous amount of support in terms of developing as a teacher, and you'll hear a lot more about that as well. And I think the skills that you pick up as a teacher are the foundation then of so many other things that you can do in life too. Step two is to become part of a wider community of people trying to do the same thing. And that begins straight away as well, that you will join a community of 16,000 people, ambassadors we call them, who have gone through this program, who are working in school and out of school in all sorts of roles and positions. And we are so much stronger if we can do this together. Because these are big problems, and being part of that group is a source of huge support and comfort, but also about an amplification of your influence and power as an individual. And step three is to develop those skills as a teacher, that community that you're part of, into a leadership role. And that can take many forms. It's not just the traditional management. You can lead from within the classroom, you can lead as a head teacher of a school, you can lead as a charity leader working and supporting schools, you can lead in policy roles as well. And I think the magic of Teach First is the blend of all of those, but it begins with teaching, and it's rooted in teaching as the foundation. We are particularly keen to welcome people with a background and a career from outside of education. And I know many of our schools feel exactly the same way about that. You've picked up skills, you've picked up perspectives, you've picked up experience that the young people that you come into contact with need and will be fascinated by, and that you can share that as you grow in your confidence as a teacher as well. So a large proportion of every cohort that we put together has people both fresh from graduating, but also with deep experience too. And I think we're stronger because of that as well. So I'm delighted that you're interested and ready to find out more here as well. I think that's enough for me to get things started. I'm going to hang around and see what questions, and we'll certainly chip in when I can as well. So Laura, back to you, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much, Russell. I always find it very inspiring to hear from you, and just a reminder as to why we do what we do as an organisation as well. So yeah, thank you very much for that. I'm going to go back to sharing my slides with you all, and just move on to, now we've heard from Russell and about what makes Teach First unique. Let me tell you a little bit more about what makes our training programme in particular unique. Many people come and talk to us about Teach First because they are interested in getting a teaching qualification. And that's completely fair, because we do offer a teaching qualification. We offer a route that's 2 years where you're based in a school and you gain a teaching qualification at the end of it. But our training programme is so much more than just that. It is, as I say, a 2-year school-based route, but from day one in the classroom, you will be paid a salary as a teacher, because you'll be working as one in that school, and you'll be on a fixed term contract in the same school for 2 years. You will also work towards a fully funded teaching qualification, so you don't have to be concerned about tuition fees, student finance in any way. Yeah, the financial side of things is really taken care of for you, because you're working very much where you're needed. We also offer the option for you to continue earning until you start in your school. So right now we know things are difficult for people financially. So this is a great opportunity if you're looking to continue to earn as much as you can up until you start on that salary in school. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later in the presentation. And these kind of practical benefits do really appeal to people who are often changing career, because financially you just need to be stable in order to make that move across. But I think our training programme is a lot more than just the financial stability. It's really a fantastic option for anybody that is wanting to really boost their career and move on quickly, because the nature of the programme, the challenges, the opportunities, the push that it gives you means that people who complete it and people who are completing it tend to progress quite quickly. And obviously that, includes pay increases as well. You'll, as I say, work towards a fully funded teaching qualification. The teaching qualification that we offer is higher than the standard PGCE. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with the PGCE. We offer we offer rather a postgraduate diploma in education, or a PGDE. That is worth about 2/3 of a master's qualification. It's a teaching and leadership qualification, and it is internationally recognised as well. So a really fantastic academic qualification to have on your CV. You will also gain qualified teacher status, or QTS, that enables you to work in maintained schools in England as well. We will be with you every step of the way through the 2 years of the programme, and you'll have fantastic professional coaching to ensure that you're developing and progressing well as a teacher in one of our schools. And that coaching plus the teaching and leadership qualification are worth over £10,000 alone. For me, one of the most unique and exciting aspects of Teach First that you would not get with other teacher training routes is access to our network of ambassadors, so people who've completed one of our programmes. And these are people who are working in a whole range of organisations who are all committed to building a fair education for everyone, regardless of their background. And whilst you're training, and when you've completed the programme as well, you will be part of that network of people and all the support that they can informally and formally offer you. Most importantly, our training programme will be a career, and it's a career where you can make a difference, but make a difference, most importantly, exactly where you're needed with the children that our society is failing the most right now. So I'm going to talk you through the structure of the 2 years of the programme. It all starts with Summer Institute. Summer Institute is a 5-week intensive training programme where we get you ready to start work in school in September. At Summer Institute, we focus on 3 key strands to get you ready for September. So you'll cover classroom management, planning and assessment. Summer Institute is delivered online, and you will have some self-directed sessions. You'll come back for tutorials and seminars where you will practice and observe others, demonstrating their teaching skills that they've been learning about. And you'll have regular check-ins with Teach First every week to make sure that you're progressing in the way that you need to, ready to start in September. Summer Institute, there are 2 options as to the way you can complete it. So some of you who might be familiar with Teach First from a few years ago will be aware that Summer Institute used to be a 5-week block that you had to be available for full-time over the summer. This year, we introduced a part-time option for Summer Institute, which enabled people to continue working whilst they trained, and they could continue earning in their current role right up until they started in school in September. So this is a great option if you do need that bit more financial security. Part-time and full-time Summer Institute, the curriculum is exactly the same. There's no difference in terms of what you'll gain from it. It's just that this part-time ones takes longer. So the full-time option will run from the end of June to the end of July, and the part-time will run from the start of June through to the first week of August. So it just takes longer because you're spreading it out whilst you're working in the day as well. Regardless of whether you do full-time or part-time, you will have to spend some time out in school. So there will be time when you need to actually physically be somewhere full-time. So about a week and a half in July, you'll go out and spend some time in a school that you will not be teaching in yourself, but where you will be observing and practicing your teaching skills. And then you'll go out and spend some time in the school that you'll be working in September as well, just to get an understanding of obviously the context that you're working in, the rules, the routines, the classes, the department that you're working in as well. So that is Summer Institute. You then have most of August off before you then start in school in September. And most excitingly, you will be a teacher from day one. So you'll be responsible for your own classes, and you will not be this person observing at the back of the classroom or a little extra pair of hands, making sure that everyone's doing what they need to. You are the teacher, and the students will see you that way. And there are huge benefits to that, one of which is you're able to set up great relationships and routines from day one and for the rest of the year. You will be training in that year, so you'll be on a timetable which is between 60 and 80% of what a fully qualified teacher in your school would be teaching. And you will have ongoing training and support, so we certainly don't leave you to it in September. You'll have days either off timetable out of school or sometimes on the weekend where you come back to us to top up your training, to think about how you can move forward, and also start to think about some of the work that you need to do towards your academic qualification as well. Uniquely with Teach First, you have 3 different points of support whilst you're training. So you will have a mentor in school, so that being a more experienced teacher who will have weekly check-ins with you to talk about how things are going. And you will also have from Teach First 2 development leads. Development leads are people who've worked in middle leadership in schools usually or above. They are very experienced teachers who are there to guide and support you right over the 2 years of the programme. You'll have one who is very much a teaching expert, and that person will be responsible for assessing you, for making sure that you're getting the support that you need, and will be in really regular contact with you. And you'll also have a subject or a phase expert and development lead as well, who's there to offer advice and support in terms of how you deliver your subject or your phase actually in the classroom. So all of that is there, certainly in your first year, and in your second year, it will all continue as well. So that first year, you'll then come to the end of it in July, and all your hard work will have paid off, and you'll gain qualified teacher status, or QTS, which, as I've said, allows you to work in maintained schools in England. You've then got the summer, and lots of people want some time off for the summer, go away, relax, and not think about working in schools, which is completely fair and understandable. But I just wanted to highlight to you that we do have summer projects available. Summer projects are paid mini internships that are exclusive to Teach First ambassadors and people who've completed our training, but also to Teach First trainees, so people who are currently completing their training. And the idea is that you're going to go into an organisation and do a project that is of genuine value to that organisation, but also that you're going to gain skills and experience that you can take back into school with you in September. So they're a great opportunity if that's something that you're of interest, it's of interest to you, but equally, as I say, you might just want your summer, and you're very much welcome to that. You will then go back into the same school in September, and because you know what you're doing already, you know the kids, you know the routines, you know the rules, you know how things work, you are really going to be able to get going in your second year and ready to take on an increased timetable of about 90% of what a fully qualified teacher in your school would have. You'll also be really ready to continue to really push your development because you know what you're doing already, and you're going to benefit from all the same support that you had in that first year of the 2 development leads and the mentor in your school as well. And at the end of your second year, you'll then complete your postgraduate diploma in education. And most importantly for us, and I think for you as well, you will become an ambassador. And as I've mentioned before, an ambassador essentially is anybody who's completed one of our training programs and who is committed to continuing to work towards building a fair education for everyone. We have now more than 16,000 ambassadors, so you'll be joining a very large community, and it's a very large community that we know does well in education in particular. So we know that by the end of the third year of teaching, our ambassadors are generally on about £3,000 more than their peers who've trained elsewhere, and by the end of their 5th year of training, about £6,000 more than their peers elsewhere. In fact, we know that Teach First teachers are 7 times more likely to be in senior school leadership roles than their peers as well. And as I mentioned briefly before, we really think that is due to the challenging nature of the programme, the skills, that coaching, that push right through the programme that really ensures that you excel and continue to as well. And as I've said before, I think this is just a fantastic opportunity, something that you wouldn't get with other teacher training routes, that access this huge network of people who are all trying to achieve the same thing. And our ambassadors do, the journey doesn't end with Teach First and training program. You will continue to have that connection with Teach First via the ambassador networks. And our ambassadors have gone on to set up their own smaller networks as well. So some of them are kind of subject specific or particular areas of teaching specific. We've got affinity groups such as a career change network, parent network, and we also even just have local groups of ambassadors. So, right up from Cumbria down to Hastings, teachers who are supporting each other formally and informally and offering each other essentially, free CPD, continuing professional development, because you're sharing what you're doing well and what you can improve on as well. So it's a really excellent opportunity to become part of that community. I hope that diversity in terms of what our ambassadors have gone on to do also serves to highlight the diversity of people that join us as well. There is no particular one type of person that joins our programme. we are looking for people, as Russell said, from a whole diverse range of backgrounds because it's important. These statistics are from our 2021 cohort. And as Russell mentioned before, like those different perspectives, different experiences are all important to schools because we need that difference. People from different perspectives ensure that organisations and therefore schools progress and develop more quickly. And just from a really, a pupil perspective as well, it's really important that they see individuals with different experiences, with different perspectives on life. They also need to see people who look like them, who are successful, who can be role models to them, and who don't necessarily look like them, but are still role models, still people that are successful from different backgrounds. I wanted to highlight in particular career changes because even now I still come across a myth that we don't really, recruit people who are career changers. We're mostly looking for people straight out of university. I've been working in our team for 8 years now, and I can tell you for free that that's certainly not the case. We recruit many career changes every year, and as you might have seen on the previous slide, in 2021, more than 50% of the people who joined us were straight out of university. There's 3 career changes on this slide that I wanted to highlight in particular, just to give you an idea of the diversity and the range of people that come through to us. So I'll start with Nathan Delaria, who's down on the, pointed to in the Manchester area. Nathan joined our 2012 cohort, and he was actually a professional footballer before that. So he trained with Man City and Rochdale as well, and then swapped all of that for training with us. And he trained to be a maths teacher. He's now head of maths and assistant head at a school over in Greater Manchester. You'll then see Raza Ali. Raza joined our 2008 cohort after working in finance and getting rather fed up in it. And he is now a head teacher in London. And finally, Rachel is highlighted at the top. Rachel trained in the Yorkshire area as a computing teacher. She worked in cybersecurity. She was also an assistant head at school in Oldham in Greater Manchester. And Rachel's recently joined teachfirst actually. She's head of computing, so she leads up the support that our computing trainees get whilst they're on our training programme. Before I go on too much further, I just wanted to highlight STEM in particular. And the reason for that is that essentially there is a critical shortage, as we said on this slide, of STEM teachers in the UK. So I'm sure that you will have seen reports about this already that have resulted in many schools having to employ people or having people working in classrooms who aren't qualified in those subjects, so don't have a qualification that's relevant to those subjects. So students being taught by people who aren't specialists essentially for these subjects that are incredibly important in terms of the economy and where students can go on to after school as well. Unfortunately, it is our schools that are impacted most by this shortage of STEM teachers. And as you'll see from the statistics over in the blue, at the moment, about 24% of schools that serve disadvantaged areas have got those science teachers who don't have a relevant qualification. So every year we have an overwhelming demand from the schools that we work with for people who are eligible to teach science, maths and computing. And whilst we certainly do recruit for primary, early years and many other secondary subjects, if you are eligible to teach science, maths or computing, you stand to make the biggest impact on our pupils. And because of that shortage, it's also a real opportunity for you to develop as well and progress slightly more quickly. And we do have a number of initiatives to support with that. So if you need some support with brushing up your subject knowledge, we can help you with that before you start training. And if you're a computing teacher, we also have a link with Amazon to support people not only in getting ready to start their training, but also whilst they're training on the programme as well. A link with Amazon to keep that subject knowledge up to date in this sector that's moving very quickly. I'm going to hand over to Steph now to tell you about another initiative that we have. to support getting more STEM trainees into the classroom.
Thanks so much, Laura. Hi, everyone. My name is Steph, and I am an underrepresented talent recruiter here at Teach First. As Laura said, we are actively working to improve representation in the classroom, and we've partnered with Sir Lewis Hamilton's charity, which is Mission 44, which aims to combat the diversity problem in England's teaching workforce. The reality is that some pupils have no Black teachers throughout their entire time in school. And it's not at all surprising when you hear that the majority of schools in England, around 60%, have no Black teachers or any teachers from an ethnic background at all, except for white. And this can adversely affect a child's experience in education, as Black teachers are less likely to underestimate Black pupils. Never seeing a Black person in a position of expertise, leadership, and trust at a young age really reinforces extremely harmful, both explicitly and implicitly, about the messaging about racial hierarchy and stereotypes, and that effectively white people are the archetype to fill these positions. Now, research has been done, and it's shown, unfortunately, that Black students experience the additional barrier of low expectations from teachers. And that results in them being streamed into lower ability sets, regardless of their academic ability. And this reduces the chance of Black students being offered subjects such as triple science pathways. And this matters ultimately because students are, these subjects are ultimately required by schools and colleges to progress to A-levels, into the A-levels in sciences and beyond, and ultimately go to university and study these subjects. Now, the aim of our partnership with Mission 44 is to recruit 150 Black STEM teachers to our training program so that all of our students can have a visible and positive Black role model in their lives, and so that Black students can have teachers who champion their confidence, promote their self-esteem, and give them the enthusiasm that they need ultimately in STEM subjects. Now, we need more Black STEM teachers like those who are on this call on this webinar to inspire the next generation of Black scientists, Black engineers, and other professionals that ultimately contribute to our society's future. Having racial diversity within schools and in the school workforce is not just valuable for Black kids. It's valuable because it fosters social cohesion, and most importantly, it's supporting pupils to grow and develop in all environments, and it gives a visible and diverse role model in these spaces. And having Black teachers in the classroom, as I've said, it's not just beneficial for Black children or Black pupils, it's beneficial for all. Now, over the last year, we've taken the time to understand really and truly what our Black trainees and our Black talent needs. And ultimately, we've drilled that down to community. And in November, we launched our STEM from Black campaign. And we hosted a whole party in London in one of our Teach First schools, where we had BBC Radio 1 extras, host Richie Brave, and renowned mathematician Dr. Naira Chamberlain, who's in this photo right in the middle, attend. And we want to continue to foster the feeling of community, but we can't do that ultimately without you. Now, we want you ultimately to be the version of yourself that you wanted to see when you were younger. So before we continue, we want to make sure that as we head into the main part and the bulky part of this evening, it would be great if you could engage and use the Q&A function of the Zoom in Zoom to just ask your questions to the panelists. So we're going to find out more about our training program, and it would be great, if possible, to go on and know a little bit more about our panelists right now. I'll ask them and invite them to switch on their cameras and unmute themselves and show their faces to everybody, if that's okay. I can see Sarah, we need Matt, and we need Guy. Wonderful. You have to make sure we don't have any technical difficulties, of course. We'll just wait for Matt a little bit. Is everybody, Sarah, can you hear me loud and clear over on that side?
I certainly can.
Wonderful, we can hear you too. Guy, can you hear me loud and clear on your side?
I can, yeah.
Wonderful. And Matt, can you hear us at all?
Yes, I can. Hi there.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's great.
Sorry about that.
It's good. Sometimes you have to do a little temperature check and just make sure that we are that you're there. Of course, we'll also have Russell. So we want to make sure we know you well. We know the four of you, mainly you, Sarah, Matt, and Guy. So if we're starting with you, Matt, we'll kick it off and ask you you need to tell us who you are and what you are currently doing.
So I trained through Teach First in 2020. I'm currently a maths teacher. I'm working in Hounslow in London. Yeah, that's who I am. That's where I'm at.
Oh, wonderful, great. And what about, we'll go on to Guy. Guy, you give us a wonderful introduction of yourself as well.
Hello everybody, I'm Guy. I trained with Teach First in 2007 in the West Midlands. I then spent most of my career working in schools in London, but I returned to the West Midlands recently, and now I'm the head teacher at Arcs and Aldwins Academy in central Birmingham.
Amazing, wonderful. And Sarah, we'll come over to you. Who are you and what do you do?
Thank you very much. So my name is Sarah Flaherty. I am a secondary practice development lead for Teach First, which you've hopefully heard a little bit about what that role kind of involves, but I'm hopefully going to give you a bit more information on that. I have worked for Teach First since 2017. So this is my 6th year. I love the job that I do. My background is I trained as an RE teacher back in 2009. I then was given the opportunity to kind of further develop as a curriculum lead within my faculty, which gave me the experience of firstly working with young people, which is one of the greatest things in the world, but also working with quite a lot of new trainee teachers, newly qualified teachers, which was a really rewarding experience. And it's kind of led me to the role of development lead. So it's really exciting to be talking to people who are thinking about this as a career, because it's one of the most rewarding things that you can do. So lovely to see you all today.
Oh, thank you so much for joining. Well, Matt, we'll kick it off with you. We'll start off. So we've heard about the need for STEM teachers from Laura, and not only because of the teacher shortage, but also the relevancy of these skills in today's digital world. A love of the subject often starts in the classroom, and though 70% of our cohort teach maths from A levels like you did, many understandably are reluctant at first. Were you nervous to begin with? And how did you develop your confidence in teaching maths? That was a big mouthful, so by all means, if you need me to repeat, let me know.
Not at all, not at all. I'm quite embarrassed to say, when I actually got my Teach First offer, I was potentially a bit overconfident about teaching maths. It was quite a shock when I turned up and you realise how much certain concepts need breaking down, but doubly how advanced some kids end up being as well. I remember doing a year 9 class and handing out a sheet of work for them to complete for the lesson. By the time I handed it out, they completed it all, and I was a bit stuck for what else to do, so I had to make it up from the textbook. The first year, I won't lie, it did require a lot of prep work ahead of lessons. I remember writing out all my explanations. I remember working out every question and watching videos online. There's so much online to help teachers out. My school also happens to teach for a mastery curriculum, so the focus is on a deep understanding of foundational principles. These foundational principles I wasn't taught at school and wouldn't have known to look for them anyway. And if you guys decide to come to Teach First, you'll have moments like this. It might be adapting lessons for kids with special educational needs, or it might be delivering a pre-planned lesson that maybe isn't quite the logical way that you would go about things. But there are 2 things that did get me through that challenging time. And the first one appears quite obvious, but asking for help. Every single experienced teacher in my department helps me out when I ask. In fact, it's genuinely, I cannot think of a teacher I've approached in my 3 years as a teacher who hasn't been open to helping me. They've either explained how to do a concept, they've either invited me to come and watch a lesson that they're teaching, or in some cases, they've actually taught me the concept for the first time. Yeah, every single teacher I encountered in my first year helped me out. They lent me books for essays, they shared advice, they even let me vent about tricky classes. Teaching isn't a competitive industry, it's a collaborative industry. And based on my experience and the experience of every early career teacher I've encountered, experienced teachers are willing to help you. And the other thing I learned, and the thing that got me through, was not being afraid to go out of my comfort zone. So just as an example, in my first or second year, I probably could have taught trigonometry in about a week. I could have given the kids a basic understanding or enough to pass their exams. But my mentor pushed me to really go for this deep understanding, to really give it a go. And I worked it out ahead of the lesson. And I can confidently say that my understanding of the topic got better. And also for the students, they can still complete any exam question they're faced with, but they additionally got to articulate how it links with other topics, where the principle came from. They had a more interesting and like intellectually rigorous lesson because I pushed the boat out a little bit. And the great thing about teaching is it's not heart surgery. If a lesson goes wrong, and it will, sometimes it will, you can just reteach it the next day. So that's the two things I learned.
No, that's incredible. It's good to hear about the collaborative effort that everybody in that school and what you've been experiencing is clearly not just, we're not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk. So it's good to hear you come back and say that. I'll carry on and ask you another question. How did your general life and workplace experience prior to joining the classroom support your success on the program?
Okay, so I actually studied law at university, and I worked for a law firm before I went into teaching. So I'm not a subject specialist. The nice thing about being a career changer is that kids are sort of fascinated by having something different in your background. It does give you a different perspective. So career changers and non-subject specialists, we obviously will have an excellent knowledge of the subject. You don't rock up to a lesson without having that. But you additionally have this whole other skill set and this perspective. You have this whole other life that you can talk to the kids about that's so far removed from school. And yeah, I think being this non-subject specialist makes you multifaceted. It's something to be celebrated. It's really an asset. In terms of general life helping me with the job, one of the best pieces of advice I was given was allow the students to see that you're a human being. That you're capable of mistakes. I make mistakes in my classroom, and when a kid points it out, I don't get embarrassed about it. I praise them for it. When a student does well in my lesson, my reaction is genuine. I don't put it on as like, oh, you did great. It's a genuine, I'm really pleased that you're getting this. Teaching is a profession that allows you to bring your personality, your eccentricity, and your sense of humor to work. It's a job where you can, and you should, smile all the time. And the last thing I'll say, because this is something that I picked up while I was listening to the talk from earlier, I will say that the mentoring I got from Teach First has been critical to me progressing, and that's the self-reflection. I got so much coaching in how to reflect on lessons over and over again, and it's a skill I now use every day. After every single lesson, after every interaction with a student, I go back to the strategies I was taught at Teach First to improve for the next day. So
no, that's really good to hear. That's incredible. Ultimately, I think you've given everybody probably a lot of food for thought that you don't have to be a subject specialist. A-level is good. And the fact that you have life experience outside of the classroom and you've brought that in and made it so personable and such a great relationship with these pupils in your classroom, that's incredible. I can't forget Guy. Guy, we'll come over to you if that's okay. You are in an incredibly unique position to work with teachers who train through a range of initial teacher training providers. In your experience, how does Teach First and our training program help trainees progress their career, whether that's through leadership or developing a specialism?
Yeah, I think kind of seeing both ends of the journey, like being a Teach First ambassador myself, and then having Teach First trainees join the school, but also having teachers join the school from all different providers and backgrounds and routes. I think I feel really passionately that those who train to teach with Teach First are the most well prepared to be successful both on day one as a trainee, but also then to build for them a career. And I think kind of fundamentally what that's about, it's about people who are choosing, as Russell spoke about earlier, not simply to train to teach, but to join a collective effort, a mission, something that has a sense of collective endeavor and agency, which is there's a broader point to this learning of maths or this learning of geography, which is we're addressing deep-rooted inequality in society. And I think it's hard work coming into a community like the communities that many of our schools serve. It's really challenging. It's really hard work. And having that spur of motivation, which is this is bigger than me becoming a good teacher. This is part of addressing a social ill. But I've also got this amazing network of people behind me that have got my back. It is really powerful. And I think that places people in such a confident mindset as they walk into the work on day one, but then throughout. And then it's also just the power of the network. You know, I'm part of the Teach First Head Forwards network of those 90 odd head teachers. Like I carry a WhatsApp group around in my pocket every day of those 95 head teachers with like, what's the plan? What's this like in your school? How am I going to make this work? And I just think that's an extraordinary privilege compared to plenty of colleagues who aren't part of such networks. But I also know when I'm talking to my English lead, my maths lead, my science lead, my pastoral team, they've similarly got a network like that through Teach First that they're going back to, that they're relying on, that they're sharing best practice with. And I think that sense of being part of a movement, of a network of kind of collective teachers and leaders across the country gives real meaning to the work, real purpose for the work, but crucially makes you better at the work because you've got the expertise standing behind you. And I think that is probably what makes Teach First unique and sets Teach First participants up most significantly to be successful.
That's incredible. It's so good to hear, you know, the continued sentiment of community that we build here at Teach First, and that's so good to hear. You've touched briefly on the communities that you know the school that you are in and you're leading, the community that you serve. My question would be, why is it such a privilege / an opportunity to work at a Teach First partner school that serves these communities that we are in?
That's a big question. I think I feel like we have the opportunity to make change happen and tangibly see it in our hands. And, you know, there are lots of things that we want to fix in society. We want to fix a broken housing system. We want to fix a broken criminal justice system. We want to fix a broken healthcare system. Like, all of those are going to take real complex, nuanced policy making decisions, and we're not ever all going to have the privilege of being in a position to do something about that. But we can be in a position of teaching a kid how to read, and that is within our grasp. That's real. And so while we can throw our hands up sometimes at the inequality and the brokenness of so many parts of society, we can walk into a building every day and make 1,000 children feel loved, feel cared for, feel that they're getting better at something. And I think that tangible walking home from work at the end of the day, like, we've achieved something, and it's real, and I can tell you what it is on a daily basis. And I think speaking to friends and colleagues in other industries and other lines of work, that's not something you get in every career. And you get to do it as part of a collective community of adults in the school, and that's really powerful. You know, that's teams, that's friends, that's people that you've got a shared lived experience with. But then when you can also share that experience with, you know, 20,000 nearly other Teach First ambassadors and participants, then wow, like, we're all pushing in the same direction, and that's really powerful. And I think, like I said, all of us, I think, that pick up a newspaper, that know what's going on in the world, are really, particularly right now, like in my 15 years of doing this work, like, this is really hard, and our families are really on the edge. And the one thing that we can do is make sure that every kid's got a great teacher. Like, that's within our grasp. And that's where, like, events like this are so important. That, you know, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I finished my university studies. I knew I wanted to do something that was to do with social justice and making the world a better place. I kind of stumbled into Teach First, and wow, like, I've built a career from it, and I'm so grateful. because I don't think I would ever in any other professional walk of life been able to have the influence that I have had. And so I think it's a real privilege to be in a job that allows you to have tangible, demonstrable, real impact individually and collectively every single day.
That's really inspiring. Thank you so much. I think that everything that you've touched upon is so powerful, and talking about community yet again, and the important and the impact that you've had, all of it stemming from, you know, and being included because you have a group of people who are championing you and supporting you in what you've probably aptly put as a WhatsApp group, a whole team of support and cheerleaders on a WhatsApp group. I mean, that's really powerful, and I'm so glad you stumbled in. So, well, and even though you stumbled in, we are so glad, because we wouldn't be having this conversation, and it's such an honor to talk to you, Guy. I'm very conscious we've let Sarah be quiet for a really long time, so I'll come to you, but before we go over to the audience questions, Sarah, if you could explain what is the role of a development lead, and then can you provide an example of how you've supported a trainee manage their workload or well-being?
Of course. So development leads are one pillar of support that you will have on the 2-year training program. So there are a couple of development leads to kind of make a distinction. So I'm a practice development lead, and you will also have a subject development lead. The idea is that both of those development leads work to support you and ensure that you're making progress, firstly towards QTS within your first year, and then continuing with your PGD in the second year of the programme. So what that looks like is it's a number of different things really to support you in that way. This support starts from day one, okay? So the development lead works with you, or a development lead will work with you from that very first day in Summer Institutes, okay? What we do through the course of Summer Institute is that we are involved in that 5-week or the 9-week programme of study to ensure that you have access to everything that you need to make sure that by September you feel school ready. Okay, so that involves going through seminars with you, doing practice with you, supporting you through that school-centred learning week where you will be learning on the job essentially and practicing some of those key skills that we start to engage with during Summer Institutes. All right, so the support really starts from day one with regards to that Summer Institute programme. It then continues throughout that first year in the programme. Okay, so we are responsible for supporting your progress throughout that first year. How we do that is we will visit you in school. So we will complete supportive observations. We'll also work alongside your mentor in school. Okay, so your mentor is another support role. They will be that person who you will see on a day-to-day basis. Okay, and that relationship is a really positive, and you know it's a really good relationship. And what we do is we help to train your mentors so that they feel supported in being that pillar of support for you in school. Okay. We also, throughout the course of the year, we deliver live seminars, okay, which will be based on the PDDE content. We also set you specific goals to work towards, which allow you to see the rapid progress, which I think is very unique to the Teach First programme, and that because you have that responsibility for that timetable, and those classes are yours from day one in September, that's a lot of pressure, but it also means that you make a lot of progress, okay, and you make that progress really quickly. Hence why those statistics from the earlier part of tonight's presentation, that they are true, okay, and that's because we are constantly working to develop you to be the best teacher that you can be. So that's kind of how the development lead role works. But a big part of that, which kind of moves me on to the second part of that question, Steph, is thinking about the support needs. We are aware that this route into teaching is such a rewarding one, and it is a high pace, high challenge. And because of that, we do appreciate that there are challenges and that there are pinch points throughout the year and throughout the 2 years in the programme where workload is a challenge and can be a bit of a struggle. With regards to supporting workload and well-being, we really start from day one. So when we talk about like Summer Institute, we start to get you into good habits so that you can start to think about how you can manage your time effectively when you start school in September. Okay, so that means over the summer holidays, we suggest first and foremost, my biggest bit of advice is to get a teacher planner, so that you can start to pencil in all of those dates, get a copy of your school calendar, pencil in all of the dates of your data drops, all of your parents' evenings, all of those things which are the admin parts of the job, which actually take a lot of your time. Okay, so things like that to get you organized over the summer, and also to make us aware of any needs that you might have when you start in the classroom. And that's so that we can help schools to be as well set up as possible to support you from day one in the classroom. So that support kind of starts from Summer Institute. And what we're trying to do with that is to preempt what we know is, teaching is a busy job. You are spinning lots of different plates, and that's challenging when you haven't had any experience of that very unique profession. So we try to preempt it as much as possible so that we've given you the tools to be able to manage that time effectively. However, we do know that when you start in school with all the best intentions, with all the best plans, with all of the, filled out planners and all of the kind of time management strategies, I've worked with a number of trainees who have got to October half term and struggled because there's a lot of overwhelming new information. And when you are juggling a full timetable, that can lead to a struggle when it comes to managing workload. All right. But the more you ask for help, Matt mentioned this before, please speak to your support roles. Never suffer in silence, whether that is your in-school mentor, whether that is someone like me as your development lead. Please do open up to us, because you will not be the first person to have struggled at some point. Matt's nodding there because it's true. And I think the more that you can ask for help, the more that we can do and the quicker we can get in there. So in my past experience, when this has happened, when I have had a trainee reach out and ask for extra help, we've put in place what's called a support plan. To give you a bit of context, this is my kind of 6th cohort of trainees that I've worked with, and about 90 to 95% of them at some stage have been on a support plan. So it's the norm, all right? It's something that we recognise as something that can be supported because we know this job is challenging. So what a support plan might look like is a 4-week kind of intensive area where we focus to enable you to feel more confident in whatever you're struggling with. So if it is workload and if it is time management, what we do is we work with your mentor, we work with your subject development lead to ensure that we're putting things in place to support you over those 4 weeks. All right. Now, in doing so, like to give you an example, when I have done that in the past, over those 4 weeks, it's really important that your support roles work together so that you get the best out of everyone. All right. So when it came to that example of the trainee who got to October half term and was struggling, there were certain elements that we could work on. So there was an assignment due, okay? There was a data deadline due, okay? And support roles worked together so that over the course of the 4 weeks, we took it week by week, and we made the kind of the endless work pile, the seemingly endless work pile, actually seem a lot more manageable, okay? And at the end of that 4 weeks, that trainee felt a lot more in control, and a lot more able to overcome some of those obstacles which inevitably do come up when there's a lot of things going on. So I suppose my point is that I could give you a number of different examples of how I've supported trainees, but it is the norm. And sometimes these things do happen where it feels like you've got a lot on your plate. There is support available, and those support plans and those conversations with your support roles really do make the difference. It's about collaboration. It's about making you feel empowered to do the job that you are intending to do. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how we can kind of support you.
Amazing, thank you so much. Sarah, I'll stick with you if that's okay. We have a question from the audience, and it says, as someone with a very young family, I was wondering how much time I should expect to be working late on evenings and over weekends, particularly during my training years. I'm not naively expecting a simple 9 to 5 if I make this career change, but how much over and above this core is baked in, rather than, is it voluntary? What's expected in terms of workload?
Oh, tricky question. And I think I might ask Matt to kind of jump in here, but I think if you are, firstly, that shouldn't be, having a young family shouldn't be a barrier to kind of going into this career. It's certainly not. I think being very proactive with managing your time and looking at kind of planning in advance gives you the opportunity to really think about how you're going to manage your weekly timetable, using, if you are, if you have to leave school at a certain time to pick kids up, etc., etc. There are lots of trainees that we work with who have that, who are doing that. What it means for you in school is that your time is precious, and that when you look at your timetable for the week, any of your free periods, map them out. Start putting together a marking schedule, start putting together a planning schedule, so that you are using the in-school time in the most effective way possible. Okay. Now, that's not to say that you will get to 3 o'clock every day and be done, because the teaching's the kind of job where there's always something else on the to-do list. But there are different strategies that you can use to prioritize what needs to be done straight away, what can be left. That kind of advice is, ask your mentor, ask your development lead to help you prioritize that workload, because when this is all new to you, you don't know what those priorities are. Okay. In terms of the hours required of you, it's a really difficult question to ask, because often this job attracts perfectionists, and I'm one of those who will work longer to do that perfect lesson plan, to create those resources. I think it's about being strict on yourself and, considering what other things you have going on in your life and managing your time effectively. I think that there will be an expectation that, at some point, if you've got an assessment data deadline, you are going to perhaps have to work some evenings to make sure that workload's managed. However, if you are very careful with what you do during your free periods during the day, you might not have to do that. And I know that's not necessarily answering the question, but it does just really vary on how you use your time in school. Weekends wise, I'm speaking personally, I used to have at least half a day at the weekend where I would work. Again, not every single week. Some weeks will be lighter than others, but I think that, being honest about kind of my reflections, I had a Sunday morning or a Sunday afternoon where I would kind of dedicate that time to work. Everyone's different. I don't know, Matt, have you got any other kind of suggestions?
So I was just writing down a few notes, and I want to just echo a lot of what you said. So yeah, using your planner, getting ahead of deadlines, allocating free period. I, like you, I don't mind using a Sunday morning. Sort of, I'm an early riser, so I do use Sunday mornings. But what I would add to, and this is some brilliant advice that I've been given by other people, is I think when it comes to prepping lessons, there's lots of ways you can cut corners. Please don't do what I did in my first year and try and reinvent the wheel every single time. There are so many resources online. There are so many teachers who have already made this stuff. There are so many teachers in your school who will have done this before, and half the work is already done for you. So where you can cut corners, there are lots of ways to cut corners. I noted down that quite a few trainees that I trained with did have kids, and so it is possible. I don't have kids myself, so I can't speak to the experience myself. But I do know a lot of teachers who are parents themselves. So I would say, when you get to your school, speak to those teachers who have kids of their own and see how they manage their time. And again, coming back to prep time, I did mention earlier that in my first year, particularly the first few weeks, because we're perfectionists, because it is scary standing up in front of a group of kids and feeling unprepared. You do want to go home and you do want to make sure you write out all the explanations. You want to prepare all the questions. But with time and with confidence, that prep time cuts down significantly. So I used to spend maybe an hour planning each lesson. Now I can put together a lesson in 10 minutes. But it does get better with time, with confidence. So that's the advice I would give.
I mean, I've never heard a teacher say cut corners, but this is wonderful. This is great. This is everything that I've ever wanted to hear when I was a child. But it's good to know that, you know, you're not reinventing the wheel. This is not brand new, and to stick to the resources and the support that's being given, which is very clear that you've had that, Matt. You can genuinely say that you've received that. I don't want to forget about Guy, because we haven't heard from him for a little while. Guy, you've been teaching since 2007, and that's a long time ago. Could you pick out a single highlight at all?
Thanks, Steph. It is a long time. You make me very old. A single highlight is really hard. I think the one I will share is last September, getting an email from somebody called Nadia, who just finished her second year as a junior doctor at St Mary's Hospital in Paddington. And I taught Nadia in 2010 when she was in year 7. And I was her English teacher and her form tutor. As she progressed through the school, I progressed through the school. I was head of year for a while, and I was the head teacher of that school kind of when she was doing her A-levels. And she wrote down on our first day in year 7, when I first met her, you know, I asked them some questions to get to know them. She wanted to be a doctor in A&E. And yeah, like that was 2010. Just last year, I got a photograph of her on the ward in her white coat with her stethoscope, being a doctor. And I think that was really exciting, because it was an opportunity to say, this works, right? Like this happens. And that wasn't me. Like I couldn't have made Nadia a doctor by myself. I'm terrible at science, so one thing, but like being part of a team of people who put all the right things in place, both in terms of her learning journey, the support that her family quite often needed through her time in the school, and to build those relationships whereby she knew that it mattered that I knew the end result. That is like, you know, healthcare in North Paddington is going to be better for the next 20 years because like a collection of teachers did what needed to be done for Nadia in her 7 years in the school. Like that makes you feel like better and you sleep a little better at night.
If that doesn't inspire, I really don't know what will. That's a very beautiful story, and my goodness, now you're making me want to go back to school and rewind the whole time. So I mean, and that now I just want to do it. But it's been so lovely to talk to you, Sarah and Guy and Matt. It's been such an honor to hear your stories and to hear what you have input into so many people's lives, whether it's through being a teacher, a head teacher, a development lead, whether it's through being a recent trainee who has come out the other side and told us don't reinvent the wheel. So all of that has been amazing, and thank you so much. It's been great to hear what you have to say. I'm sure that everybody's probably feeling very inspired, and probably want to know what the next steps are to be the next Guy, to be the next Matt. So I'm going to hand over to Laura, who will talk through our application process.
Thanks, Steph, and thanks to our panel as well. Yeah, equally just feeling very inspired and yeah, very grateful to have heard from you all about the impact that you're making, and also to hear about the community as well. I'm really so pleased to hear that come across, because for me, as I've said before, that is something that's incredibly unique about Teach First that you just don't get elsewhere. I hope that you all, our audience, are feeling as and inspired as we are as working here at Teach First, and I'm sure you're just sat there thinking, right, how can I get going with this? And so I'm going to briefly chat you through our application process before we end this evening. Our application process is very simple and pretty quick. So many of you will be at this online application stage over on the far left hand side. Essentially, this is the start of our application form if you have, or our application process if you haven't already opened this. So the starting point is opening up an application from our website. In our online application, we ask you about your academic background, we ask you to do a situational judgment test, and then we ask you to provide some examples of times that you've showing different competencies, different skills that we know make people successful on our programme. If you're successful in that online application, we then invite you to attend a selection day called a development centre, and you'll have an interview, a group-based study, and also you'll be teaching a short lesson. And if you're successful in that, then you get made an offer to our programme, and that will be to a region and to a subject. There'll be a number of tasks that you need to do once you get your offer in order to then be ready to start Summer Institute. So, for example, we don't assess your subject knowledge at the selection day, and that's something we do once you've got an offer. So you do a subject knowledge assessment at that stage, and there are usual things like reference checks and DBS and so on that all need to be done before you start your training. I just need to highlight that this is a very fast process. We screen applications on a daily basis. We run development centres pretty much every day of the week as well. So it's a very fast moving situation, and it's important, we're really excited and wanting to apply, that you make that application as soon as possible to get into it. And I should also say that right throughout this process, you will have a point of contact with Teach First. So through the application process, you'll be managed by our expert application management team. They are there to tell you what we're looking for throughout this process, what will make you successful. And they run application workshops for you to join, so you can find out how to be successful in that first part of the application process. And they also run them for the development centre as well. So I'd strongly recommend speaking to them before you continue with your application. And as I said at the start, someone will be in touch with you within 48 hours of attending this webinar, so they can answer more questions and provide more advice and support. And once you get your offer, you will have a point of contact as well. So you know, for example, I look after people who are based in Yorkshire, so I'd be a point of contact, but equally we have points of contact for different areas of the country, and we're all there to support you right through until you start Summer Institute. I'm only going to briefly mention that we do have some academic eligibility criteria it's important that you meet. I'm not going to go into that in any detail, but I would recommend, as I've said before, speaking to a recruiter if you've got any concerns or doubts about this, because they can give you a very personalised answer as to what you might be eligible for. What we assess and select based on are the competencies listed in the blue section here. These are the things that we know make people or show that people have the potential to be successful on our training programme, and we look for you to demonstrate these at a high level right throughout the application process. And as I say, our application management team can really help you to understand what it is that looks like in the application form and at our development centre, and I would really recommend speaking to them before you apply. I mentioned before they run application workshops, and we have a couple coming up this week, which are all run at times convenient around the usual 9 to 5. So if you get your application open tonight, tomorrow, then you should be able to get an invite to an application workshop later on this week, Thursday, Friday. So that's it from us for this evening. I really do hope that you've come away feeling really inspired, really excited to take the next steps with this fantastic opportunity that Teach First offers. As I say, the next point now is for you to open up an application, and we will be in touch. Our application process is fast, so we will fill subjects and regions as soon as we have enough people to teach them in those different areas. So it's really important that if you want to apply and you don't want to be disappointed, you look to get that application as soon as you can. And there's been a lot of reference this evening to the community support that Teach First offers. And we are actually going to be running some events for people who are joining us this summer in March, for those people to get to know each other, to start to form some of those informal support networks and those little WhatsApp groups on phones and things. So if you get your application now, you stand a really good chance of being invited to one of those events in March as well. So thank you all again for joining us this evening, and thank you to our panellists who have been fantastic, and thank you to Steph for being my lovely co-host, and thank you all for joining us and taking some time out this evening to find out more. We're really looking forward to speaking to you soon, and have a great rest of your Tuesday evening.